cultural matters, cultural heritage specifically. I am Alicia Daniel Blake, and joining me, I have a guest chef in this kitchen, and we are going to be making some delicious CookUp. I am guessing that you don't know who I'm talking about unless you went onto our social media. On Facebook, you can find us at ICHSKN or SKNICH, and that way you can see who our guest is. And also on YouTube, you can find us at St. Kitts Culture. X or Twitter, also at St. Kitts Culture. If you have been following us, you will know that we have 5 ICH domains. Our guest today, though, does not have to do with social practices, rituals, and festive events. He does not have to do with traditional craftsmanship. He does not have to do with knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe. But he does have to do with oral traditions and expressions, including language as a vehicle for ICH. He also certainly has to do with performing arts. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to the one, the only Loughlin Tatem, our assistant chef here today in our kitchen.
Thank you.
And he's well known for his elements of poetry and theatrical production. Welcome to the CookUp.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Most welcome. Now, let us look at you in action. Something that you did on Good Morning SKN, and we would like our viewers to have a look at this short clip.
She rolled on the floor, and she crying, and screaming, and crying, and swore, and he fuming, and sweating, and thumping, and she couldn't take it anymore. Her eyes were swollen and watery, red. She laid in the dark on the bed. She lost her mind. Her eyes were all swollen and watery red. He laid on the dark in the bed. She lost her mind and drifted away. And when she came back, the sheets were all red. The man lying there was dead.
Now, CookUp connoisseurs, that was Loughlin Tatem. Mr. Tatem, why domestic violence?
Well, our culture has been one in which women have been deemed to have been less in some instances than men, weaker than men, needing to be dominated by men. And one of the means, anytime you find somebody who is dominant, and the culture thinks it's somehow right.
Accepted.
You know, there will be abuse involved. And especially in our culture, we have always heard that women are the weaker vessels. And I've always wondered, weaker in what sense? And once women are considered to be weaker, you may have some men particularly, because there are abusive women as well, but men generally are the ones considered to be more likely to be abusive to female. So I believe, there are multiplicity of things that would have, shaped our thinking and our behaviors, permitting things of that nature to take place. But it's sad, wherever it happens, it's sad.
So that was social commentary on that aspect of our society.
Yes, because it's something I've always been very concerned about. I mean, I grew up in a home, I never saw my mother abused by my father because he couldn't do it. But I lived in a neighborhood where I've seen women beaten. I don't think it happens so much now in public. It's not as acceptable. There are systems in place now to safeguard women, much more so than it used to be. So, but,
okay.
Yes.
All right, good. So now, another aspect of your performances poetry readings in particular is that you would read at certain occasions, you'd be invited to read. Recently, you were at the opening ceremony of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, the ICT conference. Did you make up that poem specifically for the occasion, or do you have a stockhouse of poetry that you can pull from?
I created that poem along the lines of the theme that I was given. I wanted to be in sync with what was happening, and so that influenced what the poem became.
Okay, so is this something that you would do once you're invited to perform at a particular event?
Not on all occasions, but on occasions such as that one, where I would not have normally written a poem with that theme. I would go and I would create something. My only concern about that presentation was the biblical base. It was shaped by my sensitivity to the Bible and things of that nature.
So then tell our viewers what you spoke about. What specifically is the summary of that poem that you did?
The conference was centered around communication. I think the cyber and so on. I can't specifically outline what the words of the theme, but I just thought that I happen to love the Bible, right? Very, very, very much, and not for the reasons that generally people do. I just think it's a fantastic book, and I think it addresses a lot of things. And one of the things that it addressed for me was the matter of communication. Nothing happens without communication. The Bible talks about God communicating with man, and man even the snake in the garden spoke. And things of that nature.
I think you did mention that in
right.
the poem.
So, the Bible talks about a donkey that spoke, things of that nature. So I presented those elements and tried to fit them. I don't know how well I did it, but I tried to fit them into the context of the whole meeting.
All right, got you. Now, considering what is happening in the Federation at the moment, I would like you to do a little bit of social commentary as well. And if you were to write a poem right now, considering all that's going on, what would you choose? What would be your subject?
If I were to write a poem right now about things that are happening in our Federation, it would either be about politics, the political situation that is currently the talk, or it would be something that has to do with maybe education, where it's going, what it has done for us, because I think St. Kitts is a great country when it comes to education. It's amazing. People come from overseas with their children, and these children shine.
Okay, I'll give you a little food for thought. If it was me, I would write about the Aspire program, which connects directly to education.
Okay.
All right. So now, what are you currently working on?
I'm currently working on two things, let's say. I'm working on a number of short stories no more than 5 pages. There's a lot of them. Many of them. I'm not as devoted as I really should be. I really should be writing if I have an app on my phone that reminds me that I should be writing, and I keep turning it off. I turned it off about 4 times this morning.
Those phones are really smart.
Right. But I've not eliminated it. I've not removed it because I am going to find the discipline to do what I want to do. Because, time flies. You get older, and
right.
you don't know what may happen. So
okay, well, you're not going to get any older on this show today. You'll still stay where you are, and we are going to be right back, CookUp connoisseurs, with more from Loughlin Tatem.
It's time that we realize that we must work together to thrive. The world as we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder? Yeah, with life and all you see, and the climate's changing. But hope is remaining. And we can't ignore the future. It depends on you and me. one chance, all that we got. One voice, together we stand. Take care, the world where we live permite a todos vivir. Tomamos la oportunidad para cortar la humanidad. And I must leave no one behind because we are one climate, one Caribbean. One climate, one Caribbean.
Welcome back, CookUp connoisseurs. We have with us our traditional knowledge bearer, Mr. Loughlin Tatem, and we are in for a treat. He is going to do a bit of reading for us, and this time it's from his novel called Attempting to Confess. Mr. Tatem, take it away.
Richie was the village bully. He was a short boy of about 18 years old, with a muscular build of a weight lifter. None in the village wished confrontation with him. He feared neither the retribution of the law, neither did he regard the opinions of the villagers. No one knew of Richie ever being arrested by the police, though many who knew him felt it would only be a matter of time before this happened. He had threatened villagers who had unintentionally offended him. It was near impossible to avoid Richie if he intended to confront you, which he used as entertainment for the gang of young men who chortled at his jokes and misdeeds. Villagers told stories of Richie breaking a beer bottle against a wall, holding the jagged edge to a man's throat, threatening to cut him into pieces, threatening to cut him so badly that he would have to walk around with a paper bag over his face. The villagers tried to avoid him. No one wanted any trouble. He had been known to tug at the dresses and hands of the village young women as they passed. Those who detested his behavior and pulled their hands away or grimaced when they saw him approaching were subjected to a barrage of verbal abuse and insults. Many young women of the village either pretended to like him or shifted to the other side of the street when they noticed him in the distance. Those who feigned an acceptance often endured his hugs, prayed for quick release as he stepped mincingly beside them, often for quite some tortuous distance, whispering his distasteful desires in their ears. There were people in the village who would have been willing to discipline him on behalf of his mother, who spent much of the day on the steps of Satellite Rum Shop, drinking and cursing villagers she disliked, dancing to calypso punched into the jukebox, and smoking cigarettes.
Oh.
Everyone feared or disliked Richie because they knew of his threats, which they believed he would one day carry out.
Okay, now what a character. Richie, you said?
Richie.
Okay, so can we assume that Richie is the main character in Attempting to Confess?
No, Richie is not the main character at all. Richie is just a menace to society.
So give us the context then. If Richie is not the main character, does Richie get into some sort of conflict with the main character?
Richie is symbolic of what the society was like back in the 1960s and 70s in McKnight. There was a real chap whose name was Richie. I don't know whether he's still alive or not. I know he's not in St. Kitts, but it's a perspective on some of the things that happened there. The context of the story is centered around a man, a baker, and a woman who, came together through a number of circumstances. He was a very loved, famous. He was typically what McKnight was like back then. The names of the persons, I've changed them up a little bit, except Richie, because he's not around here. And I changed the name of the key characters. But I hope I'm answering your question. But,
so give us a synopsis of what it's about. So you said it's centered around a baker and a female companion, I take it?
Right. It is essentially about love in the community, how people behaved, how they, how did a man go about attracting the attention of a woman, what people, how women were treated, how, Richie is symbolic of how women were just treated.
So what's the end result? Did
at the end of the story
get married, or yes, or do you want to leave that hanging? Do you want to reveal to us?
The story did not end nicely.
So it was not a fairy tale ending.
No, it's reality. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have your dreams, your expectations, and your ambition, and it goes haywire. Okay. It goes its own way. Mm-hmm. Things don't work out. I don't believe any story should be predictable.
Okay.
You should nobody should know. If I know how the story is going to end, I'm not going to read the book.
Okay, so it's a realistic synopsis of life.
Except the names of the persons, and some of it is imaginary too. But essentially,
all right,
these things happened.
So tell us a bit about you now. When did you first begin writing, and why?
There has never been a time when I didn't write. I was born with a love for literature, with a love for books. I remember the first story I found myself being very aware of, having read, was a story I got when I used to go to Vacation Bible School at the Wesleyan Holiness Church, where I spent all my life as a child. It was about a missionary named David Livingstone. He was a missionary in Africa, and he talked about the lions there and so on, and things of that nature. Those were my early exposure to literary work, and it's just an innate thing in me.
It comes quite naturally.
Yes, I love to write,
so then
and I love to read.
This stem over into your theatrical writing?
To me, they feed off each other. Reading inspires writing, and sometimes the best way, from my perspective, to bring the page to life is to make it visible.
Okay. So how does that lend into production? Because that's exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Taking the writing off of the page and getting the characters to perform it. What is the connection, and is it different? Is it difficult?
It's not difficult. It's challenging. It does take, you have to know something about how the human mind works. And what people want out of a story. Because a theatrical piece is a story. It may not be on a paper or anything, but it's a story. And people go to theatrical performances, because they have experiences. And sometimes they see the experiences that they're living on the stage. They know, for example, in this story that I just read, the family is in serious conflict. Mm-hmm. There is no physical abuse or anything like that, but there are other types of things going on, and people see these things on the stage. Mm-hmm. So often, work is transferred in some form from the written word to the stage.
Lovely. That is a great quote. We'll be right back, CookUp connoisseurs, with more from Loughlin Tatem.
Healthwise on ZIZ TV, Mondays at 8:30 p.m. Hosted by Dr. Monique Lescott, Dr. Jolette Woodley, and Dr. Patrice Lawrence.
I'm talking about.
Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to the St. Kitts Craft House. This is where life begins. And what we create will leave you speechless. We train, we create, we promote, and we maintain the highest standards. Experience life for yourself. The premier craft and production facility in St. Kitts and Nevis.
I hope you're ready for what's coming now. I'm the one on the lady that will bring it down.
CookUp connoisseurs, we are back with Loughlin Tatem, our traditional knowledge bearer, who is in the performing arts, as he just would have mentioned, in terms of theater production, in terms of poetry, and also, of course, in the oral tradition with poetry. Mr. Tatem, you are also a trained, retired teacher. So, would you have passed on your art, or would you be working with anyone's, maybe in your theatrical group, Poinciana, I think is the name of it? How are you passing this on? Is poetry, writing in general, something that has to be innate, as you yourself said? It came naturally for you. Are you sharing this craft with anyone and teaching them?
Well, I write a piece for a school. I'm not going to name the school. Every Independence.
Okay.
And I write they have a presentation at the school with the members of cabinet there, and I'm asked to write a piece every year. And so far, I have not had any complaint. These days, they're able to send the photos to me, the videos, and I see them. I am happy that the schools are able to find students who are interested in these type of things, so they come seeking to be able to participate in that, and they do it with passion. They do it with enthusiasm, with drive, with interest, and that I find to be very encouraging, and it speaks well of the future of not just the performing arts, but it takes a certain type of person to be interested in performing, because the emotional aspects of the arts are required to come to the fore, right? So you learn to express sympathy, you learn to be patient, you learn words, you learn to be patient with yourself, you learn to be patient with the teacher who is asking you to repeat it. So you learn to surrender yourself to the bigger picture and things of that nature. Again, I always hope I'm answering your question.
Yes,
but,
you are. Because you're saying that performing, particularly theater, is something that has to connect with the individual.
Yes, you have to, and it requires discipline.
Discipline.
It requires you becoming who you are not. Right? It's requiring that you empathize with people, put yourself in people's shoes. And this is one of the reasons I'm so saddened when because we did do theater arts in school now, and the groups are always very small. Some children, but I'm always delighted that there are some students who want to do it. And I think that it should be taken far more seriously than it is taken right now, and that more students, we don't, sorry to say this, but I hope we get a performing arts center.
Okay.
Well, because
according to the minister, and that is something that they are currently developing. Right. So we shall both wait and see how that comes out.
Yes, I believe it will. I believe it will happen. But
so now,
yes,
let's continue on. In terms of passing it on, I also understand that you assisted with the ICH Core Knowledge Transfer Camp that was held over the summer.
Yes.
So in that sense also, would you also say that you are passing on the knowledge in terms of the same projection, delivery, etc.?
I think so. I hope so. The children there work quite interested in what they were doing. There were no complaints. They participated willingly, and I believe, I want to think that they went away. Some of the things that they did involved the folklore, the masquerades, and so on, and I thought that was very good.
Okay, so
Because
that is,
right, because they got a chance. It's performance.
right.
It's acting.
It's all connected.
Right.
Yes.
It's extending yourself beyond who
Lovely.
you are naturally.
I like that. So you are also presently at the Scenic Railway. Is it also that same sort of performance that you are doing in that new venture?
No, it's not performance. But I've just been taken on board, and so my role is to speak to the visitors.
Okay, and
and
tell them
sh-
about Saint
and
Kitts and
yes, and I am new to it, but I take a perspective that in my view, the aim is to make what the visitors are seeing very visual,
make it come alive.
right?
Okay.
Present an image and a perspective which is
Okay.
not just this is what you're seeing, and this is what and what year it was, and so on.
Love it. So now, Mr. Tatum, give me 1 second. I'm going to tell our CookUp connoisseurs all about the seasoning mix. Now, CookUp connoisseurs, we have several activities upcoming at the Ministry of Sports and the Creative Economy. And one of the first things that we want to tell you about is parents. We were just speaking with Mr. Tatum about the ICH Core Knowledge Transfer Camp. Please make sure to register your children aged 8 to 16, where they will be trained in doing several bits of cultural performances. We shall have the mummies, we shall have string band, we shall have the makajumbi, and we shall have the clowns. And the reason we chose these is because these, we see that they are declining, and our aim is to safeguard our cultural heritage. And so the camp is going to take place from December 9th to 20th at the St. John's Community Center. One word though, it's on a first come, first serve basis, and the persons who attended the summer camp, the summer session, will get first priority. So those parents whose children attended in the summer, sign up your children as soon as you can. And if you have any other additional spaces, then we'll see. And guess what? At the end, they'll be performing in our National Carnival. We're also going to be introducing the griot. What's that, you might ask? The word comes from the African tradition. Griot is basically a storyteller who would have performed more than likely with music. And so you would see the griot telling the story, passing on the knowledge of that particular community. And we are familiar with regional storytellers such as Paul Keynes Douglas. For his humor, of course, there's also Ken Cosby, and right here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have Crichton Pension. Now, although CookUp most often has beans in it, we're not going to spill the beans about everything that is going to happen at the grill. So on Saturday, October 2nd, we want you to come to the Shadwell Great House. There'll be several types of stories. We'll have children's stories, historical stories, and don't forget, Jumbie stories. And something else we would also like to remind you about is swank. Now, those of you who would have grown up during the sugarcane industry would know that swank is sugar water. But it's sweet, and we are going to quench your thirst for sweet cultural music. And you can win up to $10,000, $2,500 for the best lyrics, $2,500 for the best rhythm, and $5,000 for the best people's choice. So in other words, if you're good enough, you can win all three categories and you get yourself $10,000. So you can write, produce anything about the culture of St. Kitts and Nevis. Whether you want to talk about, as our minister said at the launch, about cooking sea cockroach in an old sausage pan, you can do that. You can sing about our sayings. For example, you never see foul bum till wind bottom. You never see foul bottom till wind blow. Anything you want to write on. Even you could make up your own music. You could write about the clowns. You could write about, Ellie Matt had a song about Feel Elite, the Fife, right? Anything you want to talk about that belongs to the culture of St. Kitts and Nevis, sing about it and get some nice music to back it, and you could win yourself any one of these prizes. Now, the registration is open. It ends November 1st. Winners will be announced November 29th. So, Mr. Tatum, to end, any advice for our persons interested in performing arts, interested in theater?
My advice is to get involved. First of all, I don't think enough of our people are engaged or becoming engaged in not just on-stage theater, but there's a lot of talent out there. Not just in football and so on. That's a different category. But people have writing ability. There's people who write some. If you can get a grade 1 in English or grade 2, or as long as you can pass, you can write stories. And there's a market for those things out there. People want, when tourists come down here, they don't just want to buy the things that tourists buy. They would like to take back a Kittitian story, a Kittitian song that you recorded on your phone and turned it into something. You know, these are things that we can benefit. We can, turn into practically business ventures, and make money from.
There you go. That's a great note to end on. So CookUp connoisseurs, check us out. We are on Facebook at ICH-SKN or at SKNICH. We are on YouTube at St. Kitts Culture, and we are on X or Twitter at St. Kitts Culture. Thank you for staying with us. We are so sure that you did enjoy this sweet CookUp today. And so see you again next week for Living Heritage, and then again the following week for the CookUp. Bye.